Good.
So we're at Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, starting at verse number 1 to verse number 10. And Blake Prabhu is reading. Maybe you can read the verse again for us again.
Sure. Sanjay said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudan Krishna spoke the following words. Purport. Material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudan is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. A man fallen in the oceans of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called the Shudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conduct was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose the Bhagavad Gita was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the supreme authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive results and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self. Should I read the second verse? Uh, sorry, Chandra, should I read the second verse?
Sorry, I was muting myself because I was coughing. Devakinandan Prabhu, would you like to read verse number 2?
Just the English.
as, as you like, Sanskrit, or if you feel inspired, English and purport for sure.
Let's start with it. Let's start with translation. The Supreme Person, Bhagavan, said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the progressive values of life. They do not lead to higher planets, but to infamy." Purport. Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. Therefore, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan throughout the Gita. Bhagavan is the ultimate in the absolute truth. Absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding, namely Brahman, or the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme within the heart of all living entities, and Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this conception of the absolute truth is explained thus: Vedanti tattva vidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. The absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding by the knower of the absolute truth, and all of them are identical. Such phases in the absolute truth are expressed as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. These three divine aspects can be explained by the example of the sun, which also has three different aspects, namely the sunshine, the sun's surface, and the sun planet itself. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun's surface is further advanced. And one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Ordinary students who are satisfied by simply understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness, and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature, may be compared to those who can realize only the Brahman feature of the absolute truth. The student who has advanced still further can know the sun disk, which is compared to knowledge of the Paramatma feature of the absolute truth. And the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal feature of the supreme absolute truth. Therefore, the Bhaktas, or the transcendentalists who have realized the Bhagavan feature of the absolute truth, are the topmost transcendentalists, although all students who are engaged in the study of the absolute truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disk, and the inner affairs of the sun planet, cannot be separated from one another, and yet the students of the three different phases are not in the same category. Sanskrit word Bhagavan is explained by the great authority Parashara Muni, the father of Vyasadeva, the supreme personality who possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, all renunciation, is called Bhagavan. There are many persons who are very rich, very powerful, very beautiful, very famous, very learned, very much detached, but no one can claim that he possesses all riches, all strength, etc. entirely. Only Krishna can claim this because he is the supreme personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Narayana, can possess opulences as fully as Krishna. Therefore, it is concluded by the Brahma Samhita, that by Lord Brahma himself, that Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is the primeval Lord, or Bhagavan, known as Govinda. He is the supreme cause of all causes, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Okay. Krishna, Pumshaha Krishnas too. Where are we? There are many. Let's just go ahead. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. He is the supreme person, and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes, from Brahma Samhita 5.1. In the Bhagavatam, there is also a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna is described as the original personality of Godhead, from whom many, many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand. Ete chamsha kalaha pumshaha krishnas tu bhagavan svayam indrari vyakulam lokam mridyanti yuge yuge. All the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of the plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, from apparently Bhagavatam 1:328.
Very good. You still got two little paragraphs.
So, therefore, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, the source of both the super soul and the impersonal Brahman. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsman is certainly unbecoming, and therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the word kutas. Where from? Such sentiments were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as Aryans. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is the realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu, or Bhagavan. They are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryans. Although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryans. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsman.
I have a question regarding the Brahman Paramat Vedanti Tattvadas, this verse, right? The famous verse where the absolute truth is realized in three phases. When I was in New Govardhan, I went on a morning walk with a friend, Nishingapali Prabhu, who was born with the name Nimai. He's the son of Pragosh Prabhu. He's not so famous, but Pragosh was a Prabhupada disciple, obviously in the 70s, who was a very big book distributor in the day. And he has 5 children, and one of them is initiated by Indraduna Swami, and we're friends. And he's an astrologer now, and a very nice grihasta. Anyway, And he was making a very interesting point that we in ISKCON we sometimes following the cue of. Let me ask you as a small parenthesis within this parenthesis. Was Prabhupada very lenient and inclusive with the Mayavadis, or very hardcore and very hardcore against the Mayavadis? Who would like to answer that?
He was hardcore against them.
He was totally hardcore. Yeah, he was totally.
It was one of the few things he's hardcore, because the danger he sensed the risk and the danger. He just wanted to steer clear of that whole thing.
Yeah, good point. I think also there's a context, like, because there was a lot of followers, like, for example, when Prabhupada appeared, there was like this, this Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, who were quite popular, right, in Bengal at the time and in India. But it starts even before. I mean, yeah, of course, with Bhaktisiddhanta, who was quite heavy. So yeah, so acknowledging that Prabhupada was really heavy against the Mayavadis, it seems the Bhagavatam itself, the Bhagavatam itself is a little bit more chilled, because look at this verse. I mean, the verse says, that the absolute truth is realized in 3 phases, right? And Prabhupada says a little bit below, you see that the Mayavadis and the others, even though they're still engaged in the same study, in the same subject matter, you see there. So there's a certain inclusivity that the Bhagavatam seems to have, and that, later acharyas, according to time and place and circumstance, seem to maybe have had less of, and more of a, I mean, even with Kaviraj Goswami, right? Kaviraj Goswami, that famous statement by him in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Leela Sarkar probably will correct me on the Bengali. Mayavadi Bashya Shunile Hoy Sarvanash. Blake, do you know that statement, that verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita? Does it ring a bell? Mayavadi Bashya Shunile Hoy Sarvanash.
I'm sorry, I don't know that one.
Okay, it's good. It's cool. Atavi Krishna Prabhu, Mayavadi Bashya Shunile Hoy Sarvanash.
No.
So Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita says the Mayavadi Bashya, Bashya means a commentary on. So the commentary on, so Mayavadi commentaries in general, right? Mayavadi Bashya Shuno from Shravanam. So one who hears the Mayavadi Bashya Shunile Hoy. Therefore, what happens? Sarva, everything, nash, like pranashati, like everything becomes destroyed. Where is our is Leela Sarkar with us? You can, right? Can you say
Yes,
it?
bro.
Can you say it in Bengali? Mayavadi Bhaksha Shunile Hoy Sarvanash.
It goes like
I couldn't hear you.
Mayavadi Bhashya Shunile Hoy Sarvanash.
Exactly. So yeah, so starting,
Mayavadi.
Mayavadi Bhaksha Shunile Hoy Sarvanash. So starting with Kaviraj Goswami, and maybe before even, there seems to be a strong, vehement push against Mayavadis, and I'm not dissing it. I'm not saying that's bad in any way. That's that's our acharya's mood. But it's interesting, I think, and I just wanted to make this little parenthesis, that we all base ourselves on the Bhagavatam as our ultimate epistemological authority, right? The buck stops at the Bhagavatam. Like, Lord Chaitanya says the Bhagavatam is the Amala Purana. It's, it's our ultimate authority. And so I just wanted to throw that in there, that, the verse itself of the Bhagavatam doesn't say, Brahman realization is nonsense, Paramatma realization is nonsense, only, Bhagavan realization is true. It says that, hey, we are Brahman, and Paramatma is a reality. But, as Prabhupada says nicely in the purport, they all come from Krishna, the Supreme Person, right? And the reason I mentioned that is, and coming back to Nishingapali Prabhu on that beach, on that morning walk, he was making the point that strategically, in terms of our preaching, in terms of our outreach, we don't make, especially in the West, where there isn't so much. I mean, there is an overall impersonalism, with the woke ideology and physicalism and, deconstructionism and, but in terms of specific theological, Veda based, like Vedic scripture based, propaganda that we're all one. And, that is really more in India. We may not need to be so hardcore, gung-ho against the Mayavadis, and we can, acknowledge, especially when we're preaching to people who are kind of coming to Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, but who are, anchored in an impersonal conception a little bit. It can be favorable to acknowledge that, no, we are one, we are God, but the oneness and difference. And that's, who coined this great concept of inconceivable oneness and difference?
Gauranga.
We were speaking about Hridayananda Maharaj. I'm inspired by him a lot, and he tells a story of how he started reading Prabhupada's books, 1967 or whatever, in Berkeley, and when he read for the first time this idea of inconceivable oneness and difference, that we are inconceivably one and different, he jumped and screamed, "Eureka! Eureka!" Like he found, like, oh my God, this is it. So we are one. And in our preaching, we shouldn't be afraid to, especially if we're speaking to the yoga people or people who are kind of, leaning towards Sanatana Dharma, but from a impersonal conception, we shouldn't be so afraid to say we are one. We are one. Yes, we are one with God. We are God. Because, Bhagavatam says it right here, and Lord Chaitanya doesn't say we are different. He says we are one, but the cherry that the Vaishnavas bring on the cake is this, we're different also, right? Jai, who wants to read verse number 3? Revati Kanta Prabhu?
I will read.
Okay, Leela Sarkar Prabhu. Make sure your microphone is good.
Just, O son of Partha, do not yield to this degrading importance. It does not become you. Give up such pretty weaknesses of heart and ears
Arise, get up.
and arise. O chair sister of the enemy. Purport. Arjun was addressed as the son of Partha,
It's
who
Prita,
happened
Prita,
to
not
be
Partha.
the sister of...
It's Prita. Partha is
Okay, Pritha.
right. Prita.
Okay. Arjun was addressed as the son of Pritha, who happened to be the sister of Krishna's father Vasudeva. Therefore, Arjun had a bold relationship with Krishna.
Blood, not bold. He had a blood relationship
Sorry.
with Krishna. But this is interesting as a way. By the way, you can mute yourself a second. It's interesting that that Prabhupada said the blood. Leela Sarkar, can you mute yourself, please, for a second, because your microphone is giving a lot of feedback. Thank you. It's interesting that that Prabhupada says, that Arjuna had a blood relationship with Krishna, because, does Krishna have blood? And if he does, it's not like a material body kind of blood, right? So we have to conclude that what Prabhupada is saying here is somewhat symbolic in the sense, Arjuna was, there's that sort of familial relationship, but we can't forget that, Krishna his body is what? How do we call Krishna's body? 3 Sanskrit words.
Satchidananda.
Exactly, Satchidananda. Right. Right. Okay,
We
Leela.
also read somewhere it has no veins.
Yeah, he has no veins. Right, exactly.
So here we have blood.
So where does Krishna's blood flow if he doesn't have any veins? Maybe he has spiritual veins. Like, it'd be kind of cool to do a transcendental autopsy of Krishna. You know, without Krishna being dead, he can't be dead, but it'd be kind of cool to look inside the the body of Krishna. All right, Leela Sarkar, continue, please.
Okay, Prabhu. If the son of a Kshatriya declines to fight, he is a Kshatriya in name only. And if the son of a Brahman acts improless, he is a Brahman name only. Such Kshatriyas and Brahmans are
Unworthy.
unworthy sons of their fathers. Therefore, Krishna did not want Arjuna to become an
Unworthy.
unworthy son of Kshatriya. Arjun was the most
Sorry, I muted you. I muted you by accident. I wanted to mute myself because I was coughing. So go ahead. Sorry. You have to unmute yourself, Lihak Sarkar. Yeah.
Therefore, Krishna did not want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of Kshatriya. Arjun was the most intimated friend of Krishna, and Krishna was directly guiding him on the cherry, I think so. I don't. But in spite of all those credits, if Arjuna abandoned the battle, he would be committing an infamous act. Therefore, Krishna said that such an attitude in Arjuna did not fit in his personality. Arjun might agreed that he would give up the battle on the grounds of his man.
Hello? Okay, Leela Sarkar disappeared. Someone else want to continue?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Arjuna might argue that he would give up the battle on the grounds of his magnanimous attitude for the most respectable Bhishma and his relatives. But Krishna considered that sort of magnanimity not approved by authority. Therefore, such magnanimity or so-called non-violence should be given up by persons like Arjuna under the direct guidance of Krishna. Text 4. Translation. Arjuna said, O killer of Mother Krishna, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship, purport? Respectable superiors like Bhishma, the grandfather, and Dronacharya, the teacher, are always worshipable. Even if they attack, they should not be counterattacked. It is general etiquette that superiors are not be offered even a verbal fight. Even if they are sometimes harsh in behavior, should not be harshly treated. Then how is it possible for Arjuna to counterattack them? Would Krishna ever attack his own grandfather, Ugrasen, or his teachers, Sandipani Muni? These were some of arguments by Arjuna to Krishna.
By the way, you gave some nice answers, all of you, regarding examples. You know, one of the questions in the homework was about this point that, you know, it's general etiquette that superiors are not to be offered a verbal fight, but even if they're sometimes harsh, they should not be harshly treated, you know, but you gave very nice examples. Some of you spoke of, I'm spacing out now, but for example, one of you mentioned Bali Maharaj and the other mentioned, you know, you had some really nice references to our scriptures where where a disciple, and then one of you also mentioned very nicely how, if the teacher is acting abominably, then the student, has the right or even the duty to take a distance from his teacher. And I think that's really wonderful about this element of our theology, because I think that's one of the things that maybe distinguishes Vaishnavism from cults, from some cults where there's nobody but the guru, and the guru has absolute authority on the disciple, and there's no check and balance system. The guru has nothing and nobody to be accountable to. And you see that a lot precisely in kind of Mayavadi groups, where it's all about the guru, and then if the guru messes up, then it's just a divine leela, but sorry, 1 second. Here we have the case of a check and balance system, guru, sadhu, and shastra, especially, where shastra is the ultimate arbiter. And if a guru or a devotee is not acting according to shastra, then sorry buddy, but you're I'm going to side with shastra more than with you. All right, I'll read the next one, text number 5. I'm just checking if I got a big purport or not. I got a small one, damn. Gurunata ahatatva hi mahuna bhavan shreyo bhuktum bhaiksham apihaloke hatvarta kamas tu gurun ihaiva bunjya bogan rudira pradigdhan bunjya bogan rudira pradigdhan. Translation: it is better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though they are, avaricious, they are nonetheless superiors. Does everyone know what the word avaricious is, or did you look it up if you didn't know what it means? I'm having a doubt. It comes from the word avare in French, which means to be kind of like greedy for money. So this is the translation. I mean, this is having or showing an extreme greed for wealth or material gain. Avaricious.
But they got rid of that word in the new version.
Yeah, they got rid of a lot of things, man. That's why I like to read the 1972 version. Even though they are avaricious, I thought you meant the English, the those who are in charge of the English dictionary, like got rid of them. But no, it's the BBT who got rid of that word. Yeah, it's really an issue. The book changes, But anyway, let's not go there. Even though, I mean, we're a lot better than the Jesus movement, right? At least let's look at the positive. Like 150 years elapsed before anything was ever written about the teachings of Jesus Christ, supposedly. So at least, we've got 99% of Prabhupada and everything. It's just that, yeah, like these words avaricious and so on have been unnecessarily, in my opinion, taken out. Even though they are avaricious, they are nonetheless superiors. If they are killed, our spoils will be tainted with blood. Spoils, what a spoil means here. What is Prabhupada, or what is Krishna, what is Arjuna speaking of when he speaks of spoils? Does the word spoil appear in the post 1972 version, the ones that you are reading? Prasida.
This other edition says, if they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood.
Aha, so the word spoils is not there, huh? It just says everything we enjoy.
Spoils is replaced with everything we enjoy.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Prabhupada wrote it as spoil, and originally spoil means, here's the translation. You see, this is it. It's archaic. A person or a place of goods or possessions that were, robbing a place of goods or possessions by force or violence. Here, let me share it with you real quick.
So is that what they based the revision on? Is they found words that were considered archaic, and they said we need to take out the archaic words?
I assume so, Prabhu, yeah. The rob a person or a place of goods or possessions by force or violence. The enemy entered into Hereford, spoiled and fired the city, and razed the walls to the ground. So it's either a verb or an actual a noun. Actually, look, that's right here. Here we go. Goods stolen or taken forcibly from a person or place. So, when there's a war, that's what happens. You get the war spoils. Like, you get the what's it called? You get the money and the riches of the enemy that you defeated.
Like modern toilets in Ukraine?
The booty.
What do you mean by modern toilets in Ukraine? Is that what we're getting, the winners are getting?
Well, apparently some of the Russian invaders have never seen a toilet before. They invaded some of these Ukrainian houses, and they're like, oh my God, a toilet. We have to take this home so we can have a toilet in our house. I don't know. Maybe these are apocryphal rumors.
That's funny. Okay, let me go back to, I've lost the book. Jeez, where is it? Where are you, Bhagavad Gita? I'm sorry, I'm here we go. But I want to be able to share it. Hold on. Share screen. Where is the Bhagavad Gita? Here we go. All right. So, if they are killed, our spoils will be tainted with blood. Purport. According to scriptural codes, a teacher who engages in an abominable action has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. And in the third canto of the Bhagavatam also, there's a statement wherein if a husband is fallen, and who is fallen, then the Prabhupada at least uses the word fallen, then a wife can leave a husband who is fallen. So, because in Vedic culture, there's no such thing as divorce. They should stay together. Remarriage is not cool. But it's interesting that the Bhagavatam itself, you would think that the Bhagavatam is the epitome of traditional Vedic culture. Well, even the Bhagavatam says that, a wife can leave a husband who is fallen. So according to scriptural codes, I'll read the sentence again. A teacher who engages in an abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance. Bhishma also, by the way, if you guys are interested in Mahabharata as apprentices, Hriday Nanamarj, again, came out with this unbelievable book. It's called Great Bharata. It's a novelized version of the Mahabharata, right? And he recorded the first volume. It's 6 volumes, and he recorded the first volume. The first volume is available in audiobook. And I'm gobbling it up, and my friends who are reading it it's just unbelievable. I'm discovering the Mahabharata for the first time after 30 years of Krishna consciousness. Like, he's making it so accessible. It's wonderful. And so I mentioned that because Bhishma, by the way, as a small parenthesis, when he found out that his father, right, was really depressed because his father had sort of been tricked by Satyavati's father or adopted father, who was this really sort of unscrupulous, greedy, hypocritical, low-class fisherman, who was greedy for power, and therefore had tricked Satyavati to promise that she would only marry if he gave her his blessings. Right, and then he said, "No, I don't give the blessings because I want my grandson to be the king." But Bhishma, well, before his name was Devavrata, is already alive, and so on. So remember, Devavrata actually there's a scene where Devavrata comes to to see Satyavati and tells her, listen, do you love my father? And she's like, yes. And he loves you. And I know I've already, I'm not interested in this lower planetary system because I'm half demigod, and I'll renounce being a king, right? He makes the claim, I'll renounce to be a king. But then this fisherman, he tricked him also into adding 2 extra vows, or 3 actually. And one of them is that he would only carry arms following a Kuru king, even if the Kuru king was immoral. So here, that's what Prabhupada is saying, that Bhishma, I don't know about Drona, but at least Bhishma was obliged to take the side of Duryodhana, because that's a vow that Bhishma had been forced to take. Right. So small parenthesis. I really recommend you, Prabhus, if you want to dive into the Mahabharata for the first time, or you want to get a new version of it that's totally loyal to the Bhagavatam, especially, and to the Mahabharata text. It's wonderful. It's called Great Bharata, and it's available in audiobook.
The Howard Resnick.
Howard Resnick. It's fantastic. I've cried a few times hearing it already, a few moments, like just volume 1. My friend Param Shreya Prabhu, who's a senior brahmachari in Germany, who's in charge of Krishna West Germany, he told me I cried a few times, or at least once, and he said I've never had tears, hearing an audiobook or reading a book. It's wonderful. This thing I bet is going to be made into a blockbuster movie. Like, it's the first time that the Mahabharata is actually, at least, because like you see in ISKCON, Mahabharata is not so famous, right? And even though there's a few versions out there, like Krishna Dharma Prabhu's wonderful book. But anyway, a small parenthesis, sorry. So coming back, according to scriptural codes, a teacher who engages in abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance and because of Bhishma's vow, right? Although they should not have accepted such a position simply on financial considerations. Under the circumstances, they have lost the respectability of teachers, right? But Arjuna thinks that nevertheless they remain his superiors, and therefore to enjoy material profits after killing them would mean to enjoy spoils tainted with blood. Who wants to read number 6? Who hasn't read yet? I think we're going back. Huh?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I haven't read.
Yes, please.
Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Purport. Arjuna did not know whether he should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of a Kshatriya, or whether he should refrain and live by begging. If he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence. Nor was there certainty of victory, because either side might emerge victorious. Even if victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still, if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, it would be very difficult to live in their absence. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. All these considerations by Arjuna definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. His desires to live by begging, although he was born in the royal household, is another sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous, as these qualities combined with his faith in the words of instruction of Sri Krishna, his spiritual master, indicate. It is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. And without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. Arjuna was competent in all these attributes, over and above his enormous attributes in his material relationships.
Prabhu, you muted yourself.
Sorry, that's one of the things I wanted to take out from the questions, is that that he's compassionate. Like Arjuna is so compassionate, you know. He's so compassionate. All right, number 7. I think Devaki Nandan Prabhu or Blake. No, Blake. Number 7. This is the big guy. This is the big one, guys. This is the that last line. Shishasteham sadimam tvam prapannam. Like, that's the classic of classics. You know, this last line, Shishasteham sadimam tvam prapannam, is really where it's right. You know, that's it's just that. This is it. This is the classic, guys. This is where Arjuna surrenders to Krishna. Please instruct me. I'm your surrendered disciple. Go ahead, Blake Prabhu.
Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and the soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Purport. By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. All Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life, which happen without our desire. They are like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, one must approach a spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not, therefore, remain in material perplexities, but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse. Who is the man in material perplexities? It is he who does not understand the problems of life. In the Brihad Arya... In the Brihad Aryanyaka Upanishad 3.8.10, the perplexed man is described as follows. Yovaritad Aksharam Gargi Aviti Vashamam Lokat Pratisa Kripanaha. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human, and who thus quits the world like the cats and dogs without understanding the science of self-realization. This human form of life is the most valuable asset for the living entity, who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. Therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. On the other hand, there is a Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. Ya etad aksharam gargi vidit vasamat lokat praditi sa brahmanaha. The Kripanas, or miserly persons, waste their time being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc., in the material conception of life. One is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children, and other members, on the basis of skin disease. The Kripana thinks that he is able to protect his family members from death, or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals, who take care of children also. Being intelligent, Arjuna could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the cause of his perplexities. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him, still, on account of miserly weakness, he could not discharge the duties. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, to make a definite solution. He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. He wants to stop friendly talks. Talks between the master and the disciple are serious, and now Arjuna wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. Krishna is therefore the original spiritual master of the science of Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna is the first disciple for understanding the Gita. How Arjuna understands the Bhagavad Gita is stated in the Gita itself, and yet foolish mundane scholars explain that one need not submit to Krishna as a person, but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without, and one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita.
So here we see like Prabhupada giving a big knock to the Mayavadis, right? One thing about the small thing talks about the master and the disciple are serious, right? And this is kind of connected to the at the beginning of the purport where Prabhupada is talking about how that there's all these perplexities of life, and therefore one has to approach a bona fide spiritual master. But starting with this thing about the talks of the master and disciple are serious, that anecdote that you find in the Lilamrita written by Satsarup Maharaj, the Lilamrita, and there's an anecdote there in volume 6 where Prabhupada is in a train with some of his disciples, and they're all brahmacharis and sannyasis. It's interesting. I mean, it's important to note because I'll explain. But some pious Indian gentleman comes in, or a couple of them, to speak to Prabhupada, right? And they ask Prabhupada, we want your blessings. Remember that if you read it? I mean, it's right there in the it's right there in the 6th volume of Lilamrita. And Prabhupada challenges them. He says, like, what kind of blessings do you want? Like, what do you want, right? And they're kind of shocked by that question, and they're like, for our family also, and for Prabhupada cuts him off. He said, "You want my blessings? This is the blessing." He points to these bald-headed, skinny, tired, but effulgent young brahmacharis and sannyasis who at least at that time in life have abandoned even their family life and their career, to serve Krishna, quote unquote, full time. I say that quote unquote because grihastas are also serving Krishna full time. And then they're like, okay, thank you, Swamiji. Goodbye, Swamiji. And they walk out, right? So this ties into the perplexities of life. Like, okay, there's perplexities, but the guru is supposed to give, spiritual solutions and not necessarily material solutions. And that's one thing where we see in the history of ISKCON, sometimes there's been too much of an overlap where a guru may not have any knowledge of finance, for example, and will give some financial advice, to a disciple beyond his paycheck. Because like he may be a pure devotee, but he may not be, a good financial advisor, right? And then the sincere disciple, okay, yes, Gurudev, or for example, I know one guru who came to America, and this is a true story in ISKCON, and one of his disciples was from Calcutta, actually, a nice family, from a friend of mine, actually, and so he was very surrendered to his spiritual master, and kind of gave up going to university in Calcutta for the sake of being this spiritual master's personal assistant, and kind of be all kind of assistant. And he was in America, and he was applying for his green card, right? And at one point, the spiritual master told this devotee, "Listen, I want you to go to India right away because there's something that has to be done." And then this disciple was like, "But Guru Maharaj, if I go now, because I haven't gotten my green card approved yet, and the rule is that I have to stay in the country of America for X months or X years before getting the green card, and then only I can leave the country. If I leave, I may never be able to come back to America. And then the guru was like, don't, kind of like, don't argue with me. Like, I'll get you back. Don't worry, just go. It's my order, right? And he went. And he was like, okay. And he went, and lo and behold, surprise, surprise, he was never allowed to come back to America ever again. I mean, maybe as a tourist, but his, permanent residency and what to speak of citizenship is finished. So he settled in England. He's staying in London. And then he and his parents were, quite upset, reasonably so, justifiably so, with their spiritual master. So I think as ISKCON moves on, we're seeing more and more that, the role of the guru, whether he's a sannyasi or a grihasta, is to really help spiritually, to give, shastric explanations, to encourage the disciple to chant, to encourage the disciple to follow the four regulative principles, to encourage the disciple to have better sadhana, to, maybe give more money to print more books, or, again, also with careful considerations, because here we're talking about money. There's also devotees, so many stories of devotees who, gave their entire inheritances, or, and are left poor, So it's just small parenthesis that when Prabhupada talks about, the perplexities of life, and the guru is able to solve the perplexities of life, my understanding is that the guru solves the perplexities of life on a grand scheme, in the sense of making sure the disciple never takes birth again. Not necessarily fixing, his asthma problem, or fixing his marriage problem, or fixing his business problem, but fixing his, janma mrityu jara vyadi problem. And the solution to that is not specific knowledge of, all the grains of sand, on in Hawaii beach, as I was asking you guys, but knowing, the categories of what is God, what is the soul, what is bhakti, what does the Shastra say, and being an example of chanting Hare Krishna, of doing the Yuga Dharma. Okay, who's next? We've got 2 more verses, then we'll take a little break, and then we'll have about a half hour to go through the questions more in depth. Who hasn't read? Everybody's read, but who wants to read again? Atavi, right? You're kind of next. Atavi Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Chandra Prabhu, I could try, but my internet has been breaking up all the time, like the whole hour. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to listen to me properly.
Well, we hear you, at least right now, we hear you very clearly.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll read text 8, okay?
Yep.
I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth, with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Purport. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of the spiritual master.
Sorry, you see, like the real problem. I'm sorry to bring that up, but just to justify my point, I feel like what I was saying is correct, because you see, Prabhupada is talking about the real problem, right? The real problem, the deep problem, the problem of birth, death, disease, and old age, the problem of being stuck in this horrible place, like Prabhupada calls it, of birth and death. That's the real problem, right? Please go on. Sorry.
He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna conscious is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is a real spiritual master. Kiva vipra kiva nyasi shudra kenenai. Jai Krishna tad veta sei guru hoy. It does not matter whether a person is a Vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 8, 128. So without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in Vedic literature, Satkarma Nipuno Vipro, Manta Tantra Visharada, Avaishnavo Gururna Syat, Vaishnava Swapacho Guru. A scholarly Brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or an expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna conscious. Padma Purana. Should I go on, Prabhu? The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed. Yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna, through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentation for family, social, national, or international inebriaties, then Arjuna would not have said that even an unrivaled kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planets would be unable to drive away his lamentations. He sought, therefore, refuge in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy of the world can be finished at any moment by the cataclysms of material nature,
including good health.
Even elevation into
including good health. Sorry, just a small
Right.
personal realization. Like I've been super healthy, and then all of a sudden, a year ago, I got this asthma, and now like I can barely breathe. You know, so it's what does Narottam Das Thakur say about human life? It's like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. Likhak Sarkar, do you know that that Narottam Das Thakur line? Kamala Jala, what is it? Kamala Jala.
Kamala pada jala jivana talamala.
Please tell us the translation.
Sorry, Prabhu, I don't know the translation. I just
But in English, with your English, whatever say, translate it for us. Not it doesn't have to be exact. Like tell us. Kamala Jala, what does it mean?
Kamal means Kamal means a flower, lotus.
Mm-hmm.
Jal means water. Like a lotus blow in a dirty place.
Okay.
Sorry, Prabhu,
Okay, because it's classical Bengali also, so maybe it's hard to the meaning. Maybe even if you're Bengali, like Kamala Jala. Let me look it up. Narottam. Sorry to interrupt you, Prabhu, but it's really nice. Basically, I can't find the reference, but he's basically saying that you guys know this, right? That life is like a little drop of water on the leaf of a lotus flower. And as soon as there's a little wind or something, the drop of water falls off the leaf, right? Kamala Jala. What is it? What is it? Kamala Jala Mala? What?
Prabhu, you can search Bhaja Hure Manashi Nandananda.
Kamala Dala Jala. Kamala Dala Jala. Prabhupada says Kamala Dala Jala means the little flower. You have all seen lily flower. Let me share it with you. I think this is relevant. I don't mean to interrupt the reading, but this is relevant because this is what Prabhupada is saying about the cataclysms of material nature can happen at any time. Well, similarly, on an individual level, in terms of one physical body. Wow, guys, look at Devaki Nandan Prabhu. He's experiencing so much ecstasy reading Bhagavad Gita with all of us that he's gone into outer space. You see the background of Devaki Nandan Prabhu? That's funny. Okay, so here's Prabhupada says, you have all seen lily flowers on the lakes. They are tottering, always in the water, tottering. Any way, any time, it can be overflooded. Similarly, this life is full of danger, always in danger, right? Yeah, so go on, Prabhuji, please read on. I think Atavi Krishna Prabhu, you were reading, right?
Even the higher planetary. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you fine.
Okay, it says, even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this. Shine punye mritya martya lokam vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in that way. Such fall downs only constitute more causes for lamentation. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, as Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve his problem definitely, and that is the way of Krishna consciousness.
Very good. So somebody
Yeah,
who
it's amazing that
please.
It's amazing that they mentioned the moon, right? Because I just saw on Google that there's a breaking news that they've discovered like huge amount of water in the moon, as if that's gonna solve the problem on Earth.
And as if they've even gone there, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to read number 9? Who's already maybe written once? Maybe Revati Kanta, or because everyone here has read twice except me. So I'll read number 10. So
I'll read 9.
Okay, Revati, you've only read one. So go ahead, read 9, and then I'll read 10 after you. And then we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back.
Sanjay said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjay disappointed him again in relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies, Parantapa. Although Arjuna was, for the time being, overwhelmed with false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentations resulting from family affection and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization or Krishna consciousness, and would they then surely fight. Thus, Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated since Arjuna would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end.
Such bastards, huh? I'm sorry, but these Dhritarashtras and these... Oof. Okay, text 10. O descendant of Bharata. So who's speaking now? Who's speaking this verse here? O descendant of Bharata at the time, Krishna. Yeah, Sanjaya. O descendant of Bharata, at that time, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. Purport. The talk was going on between intimate friends, namely the Rishikesh and the Gurakesh. As friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them voluntarily became a student of the other. Krishna was smiling because a friend had chosen to become a disciple. As Lord of all, he is always in the superior position as the master of everyone. And yet, the Lord accepts one who wishes to be a friend a son, a lover, or a devotee, or who wants him in such a role. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master, with gravity, as it is required. You know, I consider myself equal to you, Prabhus, 100%. But I identify with this a tiny bit because, like, as I was saying, some of you, I have a responsibility to the Board of Education of ISKCON. They're trusting me, you know, with a minimum standard to dispense, you know, a Bhakti Shastri degree, which, okay, it's not, you know, it's insignificant compared to, I don't know, University of California degree or Harvard degree or IIT degree or whatever. You know, it's an in-house degree from a tiny little religious institution on the world, you know, so in that sense, it's irrelevant. But still, for us insiders, it's still an official degree, you know, and so there is a minimum of standard required, and we're doing our best to keep it as user-friendly and as, you know, accessible and doable in the midst of your crazy life of, you know, family and responsibilities and travels and everything. So don't mind that sometimes I'm like, hey guys, like, sorry, like I can't give you your degree if you continue like this, or this is not up to par. Don't take it personally. It's just, I kind of have a responsibility towards, you know, the guys above me, or the organism above me. Anyway, you understand. So, but when he as Lord of all, he is always in the superior. So I'm not saying I'm in the superior position. I just have this role of administrator of this course.
There's a certain gravity.
I guess so. I mean, he has certain gravity. As Lord of all, he is always in the superior position as the master of everyone. That's Krishna. And yet the Lord accepts one who wishes to be a friend, and so on. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master, with gravity, as it is required. It appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies. Please don't, again, I'm not, you know, there's a little bit of a similarity, but it's not a perfect analogy. Like I'm your equal. It appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies, so that all were benefited. So the talks of Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society, or community, but they are for all. And friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them. Jai. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. So Prabhus, let's take a five maximum 10-minute break so that we can have at least 20 minutes to go over a few of the questions. Okay?
Very well.
All right, thank you.
And how do I pause? Pause record. Huh? Come again? Somebody said something? Oh, I have to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, I was saying if you would like to continue the recording.
I knew that you were going to ask me, so I beat you to it. So one of you, Prabhus, I'm not going to mention names, but didn't understand this this question, this number 7, about Prabhupada on the Jaladuta, or not on the Jaladuta, but Prabhupada wanting to perhaps leave. Here's the question, right? Can we draw a parallel in 2.9? What does 2.9 say? Can anyone read 2.9? The whole verse? You guys are again unmuted. I don't know why. It mutes you automatically.
Sorry, Jaya said, having spoken.
Yes, go ahead.
Having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent.
Right. So that's why I thought, okay, he's not fighting. He doesn't want to fight. He knows he kind of has to fight. you know, but at the same
But he
time,
already said he surrendered. He already said he surrendered to Krishna, correct? Then he
that's
also said, "I shall not fight." So it sounds like a bit contradictory. Unless "I shall not fight" means I shall not fight with your guidance.
interesting that he already surrendered and then he says, I shall not fight. Well, it just goes to, in my opinion, and again, I think it's justified. It shows how, like, when you're on the, you know, when you're like really mental or when you're really distraught emotionally, you know, your intelligence may tell you something, your spiritual intelligence may tell you something. You may remember, you know, Shastra, but the nature of the mind is precisely that it's just chanchala, right? I mean, Krishna and Arjuna himself talks about his own mind being chanchala. The mind is more difficult to control the wind. I don't know if it's Krishna or Arjuna, but there's definitely this idea of the mind. So even like in the midst of a turmoil, like, okay, help me, I surrender to you. But in spite of saying I surrender to you, still the mind may be affecting, you know, and so, okay, I'm not going to fight, you know, but like, help me. So it may not be so black and white in a crisis situation. I'll give you, I mean, I'm sorry to be arrogant here, but I'll give you, the only analogy that comes to mind is right now is a personal anecdote. When I was on Indra Swami's Polish tour in Poland, about 2004, and I was the new lead singer of that band that was playing reggae, you know, kind of rock reggae, Maha Mantra music at each festival. He was kind of like the band leader, and he was the guitarist, and he was a total jerk. I'm not going to mention his name, you know, nice devotee, whatever, but he was so aggressive and so overpowering. And at one point there was this rehearsal where they didn't technically need the singer. It was just the drummer and the bass player, and they needed to work on some breaks in one or two songs, but they didn't need the singer. And so I remember I was in the rehearsal room, and I told them, like, listen, I'm just gonna, you know, I'll take your leave. I've got rounds to chant or whatever. I don't need to be here. And I remember this devotee was like, got really heavy on my case, and like, no, and you know, he said, I'm your authority, and you have to do what I say, and you have to be, you know, here with us right now. And, you know, add this sort of Eastern European, you know, former communist mood where it's like, I am, you know, you, like a very strong pecking order, sort of a totalitarian, you know, communist kind of style. Anyway, so I walked out into the parking lot, and I was chanting back and forth, really disturbed. And then I thought to myself, okay, you know what? Trinada pisunichina tarora pisaishna manina manana kirtaniya sadahari. And then I remember the bass player came by. He was my friend, and I said, you know, what do you think I should do? Like, what's the correct thing, right? Trinada pisunichina. And he's like, yeah, you're right. You should just be humble. And I was like, you're right. Trinada pisunichina. So I walked a little bit, like for 5 more minutes, meditating on Trinada pisunichina. And then all of a sudden, I lost it. I flipped out, and I ran across the parking lot. You know, and I'm ashamed to say that I ran to the parking lot, and I ran right into the rehearsal room, and they were playing, and I stopped, and I walked right up to this devotee who was much taller than me, and I screamed to him. I said, you are not my authority. You know, like some nonsense, like, Prabhupada is my authority. My guru is my authority. You know, you won't tell me what to do. Why am I saying this example? Because I had sort of settled 2 minutes before on, you know, what is the right course of action. Trinada pisunichina, amanina manadena, right? But my mind had the best of me. So we could make a strong argument that Arjuna, playing the role by Krishna's arrangement of Yoga Maya of a conditioned soul, is showing us just that you may even surrender to Krishna, but then, you know, still be overwhelmed by your emotions or your mind. And we see that in the lives of devotees. You know, devotees take vows to follow the 4 regulative principles, for example. And yet, you know, they'll watch pornography, or they'll masturbate, or they'll take some drugs, or, you know, even though they may have even taken vows of initiation, you know, and I think even Krishna, you know, on top of that, being proactive, you know, acknowledges the idea of, you know, even if one commits the most abominable action, or, you know, the accidental fall down theme. So, you know, this is my thoughts on this. But it's a very interesting point that Devakinandan Prabhu raises, that Arjuna surrenders to Krishna, and after surrendering, he says, okay, I shall not fight. Fascinating. But coming to Prabhupada, do you agree that there's a similarity? Like Prabhupada himself says that he used to go to the dock regularly to see when is the next boat leaving in America to go back to India. And even the guy who worked there says, you come all the time. You're coming all the time, but you never go. Remember? And then I think, like Prabhupada says, anyway, I'll give it a few more days. So it's kind of like that, like the mind, even of a pure devotee like Prabhupada, and maybe it's a pastime, again, like similar to Arjuna. So, we're not going to start saying that Prabhupada was like literally conditioned by the three modes. We believe this was a pastime, to show us, but in a real sense also, he was kind of like mental, as we say, like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't want to do this. This is too much. This is crazy. And no one's coming. I'm all alone. I've got no money. It's cold. This is this Ugra Karma place where they're all, under the modes of passion and ignorance, all eating cow meat. I'm out of here. I'm tapping out. I got to get out of here. I'm going back to Vrindavan, right? But then something would, like someone, I guess, Paramatma or Krishna would say, like, come on, just, stay a little longer. So it's kind of like that, I think. Similarly with Arjuna, it's like, okay, no, I shall not fight, but I'm your surrendered disciple, but no, I shall not fight. Can we talk about the extra credit, please, for the last 5-10 minutes? Because it's a topic that is dear to me, and I think it's interesting, and I think it's relevant for us, members of ISKCON today. Was it you, Devakinandan Prabhu, who said that you think that ISKCON resembles more the Catholic Church than the Protestants?
Well, I drew two opposite conclusions for part A and part B.
Yeah, right. In part A, you were, but in part B, you were saying that they look more like. Okay.
I don't know that I'm not that familiar with Protestant church anyway. I've been to Catholic churches before.
This is where I was getting at.
Not so much Protestant.
This is where I was getting at, Prabhus. Like the significant thing about the Kiba Vipra Kibanyasi Shudra Kenenoi verse is that grihastas can be gurus. Grihastas can be gurus, right? According to this verse, whether you're a Brahman or a sannyasi or anything, or Shudra, or Grihasta, if you know Krishna, you can be a guru, right? In the Catholic Church, unless you're a sannyasi or a brahmachari, whatever, I mean, they only have sannyasis there because once you enter the order, you take a vow of celibacy for your whole life. So basically, the Catholic Church is run by sannyasis only, right? The grihastas can be sort of like, half empowered, like lay
deacons,
exactly, But all the big shots, all the major decisions, I'm not going to say initiations because I don't know if they have initiation ceremonies. They kind of, they have baptism and confirmation and so on, similar sort type of rituals. I don't know if deacons can, hear the confessions of people who want to confess. I think that's only done by the equivalent of sannyasis, right? In the Protestant churches, in the Christian Protestant churches, whether they're Anglican or evangelical or whatever, most of the leaders who are called pastors are grihastas. So the ecclesiastical power, the power to be a religious authority is distributed very horizontally, so to speak, among grihastas, right? And some Protestant denominations don't even have sannyasis at all, As a matter of fact, I've read some articles recently, or one article, how pastors who are not married, who are like, who are not monks, they're not like, they're normal, quote unquote, normal people, they're just single. They have a hard time getting jobs as pastors of some churches because congregations prefer, married pastors who have the stability of a wife and children and so on to be there. Excuse me. to be their religious leader. So in that sense, Devakinandan Prabhu, I make the claim that, because in our tradition, historically, most of the gurus were grihastas, right? And we have this famous cardinal verse from Kaviraj Goswami, Kiba Vipra Kibinasi Shudrakane no Ye Krishna Tatvaveta Se Guru Hoy, that, hey, it doesn't matter whether you're wearing saffron or you're wearing jeans and shirt. If you know Krishna, if you're empowered, if you're imbued with the Holy Spirit, as Christians would say, you've got the green light to be a spiritual authority, to be a guru, to inspire others, regardless of your ashram. Because of the history and this Shastric injunction, I think we look a lot more similar to the Protestants than to the Catholics. The Catholics look a lot more similar to the Mayavadis, the Mayavadis, like Prabhupada would say, in the Mayavadi schools, first take sannyas, then speak on Shastra, right? Prabhupada often would quote Mayavadis, sannyasis who say, look, unless you're a sannyasi, I'm not even going to listen to you speaking on Shastra, right? But that's not the case in Vaishnavism. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das, you name it, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the large majority of the Vaishnavacharyas were gurus, were grihastas, right? So in that sense, I think the Protestants look a lot closer in that specific regards, in terms of ashram and empowerment to be a spiritual authority, a lot more similar to the Vaishnavas than the Catholics. And then that brings up the whole thing of dress and how, okay, if it's, if the grihastas are empowered, then how do they present themselves to gain, followers in the, for Krishna's sake, for the sake of Lord Chaitanya. What do you guys think? That's where I was going at. Where do you guys, any realization or thoughts on it?
Yes, Chandra Prabhu, I was struggling with that one because I have never been to Protestant churches. And I guess, generally speaking, I think that there are certain aspects in which Vaishnavism resembles more to Protestants, like you just mentioned, that one particularly. But there are other aspects of Vaishnavism that resembles with Catholicism, no? Like the sacraments.
Yeah.
Rituals,
yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, we have a whole thing
baptism,
of we offer food to Krishna, and that food, that's the thing called, the Catholics call transubstantiation. I learned that from Satyaraj Prabhu, actually. Satyaraj Prabhu, Stephen Rosen, he's a scholar. He's written so many books. And anyway, so this is the thing called transubstantiation, where you have a substance, a piece of bread, and there's like a transformation of the bread by a ritual of, whatever, offering the bread to Christ, or consecrating the bread, or having, Jesus come into the bread, or whatever, transubstantiation. And it becomes, it goes from ordinary bread to, the flesh of Christ, right? The body of Christ. And we have also this idea of transubstantiation. We offer boga, what is it? Patram pushpam phalam toyam, etc. Yome bhakta prayachati. And then, it becomes prasad, right? It becomes, Kaviraj Goswami and Prabhupada say the saliva of God is in the food, right? By this ritual of offering with bhakti, with devotion. So in that sense, and the Protestants, they really don't like these rituals. When they offer the bread, or they take a little bit of grape juice, a cup of grape juice, they explicitly say this is symbolic. It's symbolic. It symbolizes the body and the blood of Christ. It's not the body and the blood of Christ. But the Catholics say, no, it is. It really is the blood. The wine has become the blood of Christ, and the bread has become the body of Christ. And we, in that sense, are a lot similar to Catholics, because we say it is prasadam. It is non-different. It has become touched with the lips and the saliva of God. So yeah, it's a good point, Atave Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, in fact, I discussed this with Blake Prabhu, and he told me a couple of stories on both traditions that are very interesting. I don't know if you want to tell them, Blake Prabhu.
Go for it, Blake. We've got 5 more minutes.
Sorry, I can't remember exactly. Remind me, what did we say?
Yeah, one of them, you were telling me how when people who have not confessed and go for communion, they
Oh
actually like
yeah.
it's kind of like a forbidden thing, and they just like they're away from the grace of God, right? And then you told me the other story about a Muslim who rejected Mahaprasadam from Lord Jagannath.
Oh yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah. This came from a friend who is actually in seminary to be in the Orthodox Church seminary. He doesn't want to be a priest. He wants to be a counselor. But anyways, he's there, and he's helped the priests do all of their liturgy, and then he's explaining to me that there's certain requirements you have to like to do everything by the book. There's certain requirements you're supposed to do or have like met during the week or whenever it was since the last time you spoke to a priest. So technically, they're not a Christian is not supposed to take the communion unless they have confessed all their sins and said so many different prayers before they take it. And then they say that the communion is so powerful that if someone who has not met all the requirements takes it, then they could injure themselves. But he said that, and this is what they teach in the Orthodox Church, that while the priest is distributing the communion, then there's also an angel next to him who kind of puts a protection on people who are unworthy to take it, so they don't hurt themselves for taking the communion when they're not supposed to, or without following the procedure.
That's
And then
interesting.
yeah, I was just telling about
Oh, wait, before
there's that little book of miracle.
wait, let me make one comment on that because I mean, just with all due respect to to our brother Christians and their bhakti and stuff, that doesn't make any sense to me, man. Because look, the way I see it, prashadam is what does prashadam mean? It means mercy, mercy for the fallen. So on the contrary, the more fallen, the more mercy you need, and the more God will be glad to give you. Why would you get hurt by taking God's mercy? How could God's mercy hurt you? Even if it's super powerful, you may faint in ecstasy, but I mean, maybe that's where they're going at. Like it's so powerful in a good sense that you could like get some physical damage. But then again, like why would God is so stupid that he like doesn't know how to dose his his mercy, and like he'll do actually physical damage to the bodies of the souls who are taking shelter of him. That makes no sense. Anyway, go ahead. What's the next story?
Maybe it's because it's kind of like offensive. Like there's like rules, and you're not following the rules, and something like that.
Yeah, but like, well, why should there be a rule? Why should there be a condition to take God's mercy? On the contrary, you just went to a prostitute or you just murdered someone. Please be the first in line to take
So we've identified one area where seemingly there's a similarity between Krishna consciousness and Catholicism, but actually there's a wide gulf there if you
Yeah,
look at it a little closer.
man,
Yeah,
Devaki.
maybe they're behaving like the Smarta Brahmanas, right?
Yeah, and then the second story I was just telling, like, I'm sure you read the story that they have that little book of miracles that happened with the Jagannath temple in Mayapur,
With that
how they
Muslim guy,
found
right?
the deities buried underground, and then
With the Muslim guy.
yeah, and then the
That's
Muslim
so
took
cool.
prasadam and he threw it on the ground, and then Lord Jagannath came and strangled him in his dream, and he came back and apologized and took prasadam, and he recognized it was holy.
Do you know that story, Nitai Prasad or Atavi Krishna Prabhu or Devaki Nandan Prabhu? Do you want to tell it or should I tell it?
Oh,
I
you
mean,
can tell us,
Please
please.
tell.
you already told the gist of it, but maybe more context. I mean, Blake told the whole story, but why don't you explain it, or if you want me to?
Um, Was I haven't read it in a while. I just, like I said, I just remember the gist. I think was
Okay,
he like
so
a rickshaw driver? Or,
yeah, so I'll take, just because we're running out of time, and I may know the story a little better. That doesn't make me any better, but so it's a great little story. So there's this Hindu guy who goes, who often goes to the Jagannath temple, and he has a friend who's a Muslim. It's a true story. And so, they were friends. And so one day the Muslim accompanied his friend quickly. So you go take darshan of Jagannath, and then the pujari offered, this devotee, this, Brijabasi. They're both Brijabasis, but one is Muslim. He offered him some Jagannath prasad, and he gave the Muslim guy some Jagannath prasad also. And the guy, when he walked outside, he just, he outside, or maybe in front of his friend or not, we don't know, but he threw it away. The next day, the same Muslim guy comes to the temple really humbly to the pujari, says, "Sir, please, can I have some prasad?" And then the pujari was surprised. He's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because actually last night I had a dream, and this black one, pointing to Jagannath, this black one was on top of me, punching me, and this yellow one, Subhadra, was laughing, saying, 'Kill him, kill him, kill him.' And then this white one, he told the black one to stop, and then he told me, 'Don't you ever disrespect the Mahaprasad of my brother again.'"
I forgot those details. Those are the good ones about Subhadra and Balaram.
And then
I don't know. He became a devotee, or he went back to Godhead, or he lived happily ever after. All right, Prabhus, it's 8:01. I'm gonna respect the time. Thank you for your sangha. Let me know if you have any objection to us officially being called Krishna West. It won't make a big difference. If you have any objection with women coming on board, Vaishnavis, and
well, I mean, as far as I have not even authorized or requested with my spiritual master to do this Bhakti Shastra. So I assume he's okay with it, and I assume he'll be okay with it under the name Krishna West.
You can reassure him that it's officially connected to, ISKCON North Carolina, New Goloka. Jai Prabhus. So
yeah, it's on me. I haven't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just haven't been in touch with him enough in general lately. Just personal note. Sorry. Bye.
All right, Prabhu. So thank you so much. I'll see you next week. With Sundarananda Prabhu will teach next week, and the week after that will probably be Pushkar Prabhu, and you don't want to miss that. And Sundarananda will give you the questions for next Sunday, today or tomorrow.
So is it? Are we already moving on to chapter 3 for next?
No, we're moving on from whatever Sundarananda asks you to read from verse 11, probably onwards. Because now we're coming on to some really important verses, right? Like super important verse about reincarnation and all that. So he's most probably not going to want to miss those.
Yeah. We haven't finished. Okay, we're not doing one chapter per.
No way. Right. No way. It's going to take us a lot longer.
Several sessions per chapter.
Yeah, for sure. Jai Prabhu's my businesses. Haribol.
Thank you very much, Chandra Prabhu.
Haribol, Revatikanta Prabhu.
Have a great week. We'll keep in touch.
Yes.
Haribol.